Welcome to week 8 of our Names of God series, and thank you so much for joining us in the midst of our small group leader guides and our devotionals. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your week and as a small group to go through these series. My name is Pastor Kyle. I'm the pastor of spiritual formation here at CWC, and I'm really excited to help take you through this week of Jehovah Nissi, week 8 of our Names of God series. Before we get started with that, though, I just want to create a little bit of nostalgia for you in this moment and think back to your days of high school and college or even elementary school, whatever kind of school you were at. There's a sense in which you're a part of a bigger thing. Some of you were really interested in sports. Some of you were really interested in bands and musicals, academic achievement. There's so many different things that you could go into in the midst of a school atmosphere. And I also was in quite a few of those myself. But one of the common themes that happens in the midst of an elementary school or a high school or college is that you are under the banner of your school. You are literally underneath the broader organization, and everything that you're doing, say if you're a football player, you're doing it not for yourself, but for the team, for the school. And if you win a state championship or something, then your banner gets to hang there in the gymnasium or wherever it's hung, and ultimately that goes to the school. It shows how you gave your all for the benefit of the school and its team, and you have that pride and camaraderie that's there in the midst of it. So in talking about our series today, Jehovah Nissi, that means the God of whom is our banner. And we're going to be talking about that today, specifically from Exodus chapter 17, verses 8 through 16. Moses and the Israelites are currently in the midst of exile. They are out of Egypt. They're in the midst of the Sinai desert area, and currently they're wandering through the wilderness, trying to make their way to the promised land. And they end up coming on the eve of battle. The Amalekites are in the area, and they are not happy that the Israelites are there, and they know that battle is coming. But let's go ahead and read our scripture passage for today, Exodus chapter 17, verses 8 through 16. While the people of Israel were still at Rephidim, the warriors of Amalek attacked them. Moses commanded Joshua, "Choose some men to go out and fight the army of Amalek for us. Tomorrow I will stand at the top of the hill, holding the staff of God in my hand." So Joshua did what Moses had commanded and fought the army of Amalek. Meanwhile, Moses, Aaron, and Hur climbed to the top of a nearby hill. As long as Moses held up the staff in his hand, the Israelites had the advantage. But whenever he dropped his hand, the Amalekites gained the advantage. Moses' arms soon became so tired that he could no longer hold them up. So Aaron and Hur found a stone for him to sit on. Then they stood on each side of Moses, holding up his hands. So his hands held steady until sunset. As a result, Joshua overwhelmed the army of Amalek in battle. After the victory, the Lord instructed Moses, "Write this down on a scroll as a permanent reminder and read it aloud to Joshua. I will erase the memory of Amalek from under heaven." Moses built an altar there and named it Yahweh Nissi, which means the Lord is my banner. He said, "They have raised their fist against the Lord's throne, so now the Lord will be at war with Amalek generation after generation." As we're looking through this passage, we can see a couple key themes that we as groups can take from this. The first is that there was the eve of battle that was coming, and Moses knew how to prepare by holding up the staff of God. However, he knew that he couldn't do it on his own. He couldn't keep that staff raised for forever. So instead, he also brought Aaron and Hur to help him out, and it was under that they fought for Yahweh. But when the staff was down, the Amalekites had the advantage. When it was up, God's people had the advantage. The last question that we want to ask when we're looking here at this passage is ultimately who got the glory for that battle? It wasn't the Amalekites. It wasn't even Moses. Instead, it was the scroll that they wrote on that said, "God is the one. We are fighting under the banner of God." And it was there at that altar that Moses made that set a reminder, not just for them, the Israelites, but for anybody who came up in the area of that altar. God was the one who won that battle against the Amalekites. that day. So what can we take from this in the midst of our small group? As we're talking more about who do you belong to, who do you fight under, who is your banner, where does your allegiance lie today? Are you under the banner of God in the midst of your life? If other people were to take a look at your life and the way that you're living right now, would they see God through it, or would they see yourself? Would they see somebody totally different? When you're facing battles in the midst of your own life, whose banner are you fighting under? And ultimately, there are a lot of people that are watching you when you're facing battles. When trials and tribulations come in the midst of your life, they're watching you. And it's a lot more people than you think they are. When you're coming under challenges at work, or if your family has a situation of sickness that's there, or if there's just something that's really struggling through in the midst of your life, people are watching you to see what are you going to do. And ultimately, that action can speak to who you're under. When they see that banner of God, who do they see underneath it, and what actions are they seeing at the same time? Another really important thing for us to take from this passage is, if you see a battle on the horizon, if you see something coming up, do you have a good support system? Ultimately, if you're watching this video, you're probably part of a small group that's watching it, but maybe you just happen to stumble upon us here on YouTube, or you're watching individually. I really recommend that you either get connected to a small group, an accountability group, or a mentor, because these battles come when we're least expecting it. Moses and the Israelites were walking through the wilderness and stumbled upon the Amalekites here at this one time. The warriors had the advantage because they knew the Israelites were there. So how are you protecting yourself before the battle comes around? Who are the people that are surrounding you, uplifting you, and ultimately holding up your arms when they get tired in the midst of the battles that you have on your own? Now, hopefully you're not fighting battles in the sense that Moses and the Amalekites fought, but nonetheless, there are still things that you go through in the midst of this life that you need the support of others, their encouragement, their commitment, and their challenge to you in certain circumstances. And ultimately, when you're reaching the end of that phase, when you fought the good fight, when you have persevered in the midst of that battle, who gets the glory? At the end of the battle with Moses and the Amalekites, God got the glory from Moses building that altar and writing a record of the history of what happened there. God was the one who got the glory. So in the midst of your life, in the midst of the struggles that you go through, in those trials and tribulations, but maybe even the small things that come up, that can be frustrations in your life, how are you being an ambassador for Christ? Is He getting the glory, or are you? When you get that promotion at your job, when you successfully marry somebody, when you successfully fill in the blank, there's a ton of different things. Who's getting the glory in the midst of your success and in the midst of your failure? How are you glorifying God? So that is our message for today. And what I want you to take with you is asking those questions. Who is my support system here during this time? Is it a small group? Do I need to go deeper with my small group and the people who are there? Asking the question, who gets the glory when the dust settles from my own battles? And then how are you preparing in advance for the next time when troubles might come around? God is our banner, Jehovah Nissi. Is He your banner today? Let's go ahead and talk about that with our small groups.